Welcome everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you for joining me. If you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button for me, help support me, I would greatly appreciate it. And as an added bonus, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music. Just like this, today we're going to take a look at a new Johnny Thunders box set for his 1985 album Que Sera Sera. It's called Resurrected. It includes a remix of the original album along with some bonus materials. I'll go through that in a little bit. But Johnny Thunders was best known as being the guitarist for the New York Dolls, and he later played with a band called the Heartbreakers, and of course this is not to be confused with the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers band, two separate bands here. And then as a solo artist following that before unfortunately passing away from drug-related causes in 1991. He was only 38 at the time, so very young. Just lost him way too soon, as we do to a lot of musicians these days. And his playing was described as rough, raw, raunchy, nasty, and untamed, which I actually think is a really good description for the way that he lived his life as well. And you know, his first major band, the New York Dolls, they formed all the way back in 1971 and released two albums with Johnny Thunders, self-titled New York Dolls in 1973 and then Too Much Too Soon in 1974. And unfortunately, just due to low sales at the time, Mercury Records dropped the band shortly thereafter. As an interesting side note for metal fans out there, Blackie Lawless of Wasp actually replaced Johnny Thunders in the final days of the New York Dolls completing a tour. Before the band broke up. So kind of interesting little history there, little nugget there for the metal fans. And then following Johnny's exit from the New York Dolls, he forms the Heartbreakers with fellow New York Dolls member Jerry Nolan, who was the drummer. And they released one album together, LMAF, which stands for Like a Mother Effer. We're going to keep this clean for the kiddies out there. And it was released in 1977 and is kind of another landmark album along with those two New York Dolls albums out there. And if you don't know it, definitely check it out. Unfortunately, the band would break up a year later in 1978. They would reform sporadically and play live shows here and there. So they were around, but unfortunately no additional material. And then Johnny began a solo career at that point, releasing his debut solo album, So Alone, in 1978, one of the key albums that he's known for. And then in 1979, he joined a group called Gang War, which had Wayne Kramer of the MC5 in the band with him. I mean, what a lineup there, Johnny Thunders and Wayne Kramer. They did record some demos, but unfortunately never made an album, and what a shame, because that would have been a fantastic album to have heard what these two guys could have fully come up with had that vision been realized. And so at that point, Johnny does resume his solo career. He releases several EPs, bringing us up to 1985 and the release of Que Sera Sera, what we want to talk about here. And so I've always liked the New York Dolls, I liked the Heartbreakers, but I did have trouble getting into Johnny Thunders' solo albums. And this one in particular, I liked So Alone, but this one here, I think just the mix of the album was always something that didn't resonate with me. And I do feel some of the best tracks were buried late in the album, where they should have been moved up front to really grab you and bring you in. And I think this new version of the album, which is part of the box set, the part they're calling the Resurrected, which is the remix, and it restores the guitar to the forefront of it. I think that really helps fix this album here. And so I'm glad that they've done this remix to it. The original album had 10 tracks on it. This version has 12 tracks on it. And as I said, it reorders the track listing, so it brings some of the best stuff up. In particular, what I think is the strongest song on the album, Alone in a Crowd. That is now the first track on here, and it just really kicks things off, moving this album into overdrive. There's also two unreleased songs on here that were not part of the original album. The song Countdown Love, which was written by Jerry Nolan and originally left off because he didn't play on the song. So now, of course, it has been restored and added, and that's kind of what kicked this whole thing off. These two unreleased songs were remixed. They liked the mix of these new songs so much so that they actually decided to go back and redo the whole album. And the other one on here, the other unreleased song, Talk About You, was just left off due to lack of interest. but it's a really great 6-minute bluesy song with just amazing soloing throughout it. It doesn't have a lot in the way of lyrics, kind of repeats the same thing over and over. You'd think you'd get bored with this one, but for 6 minutes, it's just amazing Johnny Thunders guitar playing on here. These two songs alone, I think, really add to the overall feel, making it a very solid album, more developed album than it was when it was originally released. The other cool thing about this box set, it actually contains an 18-track live show on it, which is actually made up of 3 concerts. And the quality of the recording is stupendous. I'm just really shocked. I kind of thought it was going to be more bootleg quality, but it is not. It is sounds very professionally done. I believe it was done for radio shows, kind of a thing, which is where we get why we get the better quality out of it. And then finally, the original album itself is also included on here. You know, just I think for comparison, it's really great. And of course, if you love the original album, you still get it as part of this box set in the original running order. So let's take a look at this. This is the front cover. It's a little bit updated from what the original one was. This is a clamshell style box, and I'll open it in a minute. But there you see the new album cover. That's the live, but there's your original album cover. I'm going to pull these all out in your track running order and stuff like that. But you know, what's really cool is this album here featured some really great guest musicians on it. It has Michael Monroe, you know, from Hanoi Rocks on here, Wilco Johnson. It also has Nasty Suicide, Stiv Bators from the Dead Boys, Glenn Matlock from Sex Pistols. So just some really cool guest musicians on this album here, making it worthwhile. All right, so as I said, it's a clamshell box. It just lifts up like this, and we get a really great book. I'll thumb through that in just a minute. And then you get the individual albums in their sort of album type sleeve, and I'll show you those in just a moment too. But here's the booklet, and this one's got a really great story with it, along with, you know, the recording of this album, and it goes back to people like Michael Monroe who were part of it because they're still alive and they can tell that story. And it's got some really great photos in here. It talks about some of the shenanigans and things that went through. There's Michael Monroe on the saxophone, which is what part he added to this album. Band photo and stuff from the studio. But there you can see this really great rundown. Then there's also just an explanation about why it was remixed, these bonus tracks, stuff like that. And then you get the lyrics and everything that's in here, and you get a whole bunch of that with some really great photos and everything. And there's really cool, there's the song on here, Billy Boy, which on the album is an instrumental, but it did have lyrics and it just wasn't recorded. They include those lyrics in here, so you can imagine what that was like with those. And then you get the albums themselves. This is the Que Sera Sera Resurrected album. And there's the back side. And the discs are in here. No protection on them. They just slide out like LPs, kind of a thing. Here's that really great live album that's on here, made up of as I said, 3 shows that are on here. Disc again in here, and the original album itself. And again, there's the disc for you as part of that. So just a quick rundown on these live tracks. You know what you're getting in here. Blame It on Mom, MIA, Cool Operator, Personality Crisis, Countdown Love, a little bit of a whore. And those were all recorded 1985 as part of a SRS studio jam. And then the next one up is 1985, also from Amsterdam, and it's got Short Lives, So Alone, Sad Vacation, Too Much Junkie Business, a little bit of a whore, Born to Lose, Chinese Rocks, and then the final set on here is from 1984, and it's got Countdown Love, Just a Girl, Talk About You, Alone in a Crowd, and It's All Right, which is was renamed as Blame It on Mom a little later on there. So really cool live tracks added to this thing, and some cool B-sides and remixes and things as well added onto in single mixes. So you get a really nice package here of stuff, and the album itself, this was the original album, and it's got some bonus stuff: Cool Operator, Black Cat Mix, Short Lives, Heavenly Version, and then Short Lives, the Johnny Remix is what actually replaced on the original album when it had first come out, and then the song Que Sera Sera, which was not part of the album, even though that carried the name. And then on Resurrected, they've got bonus material on here as well. And this one has Copycat, Blame It on Mom, an outtake version, Take You Up to Avenue D, then Short Lives outtake, I Only Wrote This Song for You, which is another outtake version, and Cool Operator, which was the first version of that track. So a lot of cool bonus stuff on this. In conclusion, wrapping this whole thing up, just to finish off the story of Johnny's life, 3 years later, Johnny would release his final solo album called Copycats in 1988. It was a covers album from the 1950s and 60s style songs. Then in 1991, unfortunately, Johnny Thunders died of drug-related causes. However, rumors have always swirled around that it was actually foul play instead and not drug-related. Unfortunately, we'll never really know, but at least he left us this great legacy, an amazing, groupings worth of songs and albums here for us to enjoy. And now with this new Resurrected remix version here, I think it sounds the way that it was always meant to sound. It was just part of the 80s that unfortunately got that mix to come out of it, and now it's been restored to what it should be. And this only enhances his legacy, and I highly recommend it for New York Dolls fan, Johnny Thunders fan, and of course anyone within that range who likes other bands like Dead Boys, Sex Pistols, and stuff like that. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, please let me know. Leave your comments. I hope everyone has a great day. I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye-bye.